I'm Oleg Novak, this is Chasing Cars, and today we are reporting from Chennai in India, where we've been checking out Mahindra's research and development facilities and SUV proving ground. But then a few hours before our flight home, and coinciding with a bit of a change in the weather, a unique opportunity arose. So we're about to take the Mahindra Thar for a spin. Mahindra has been very clear that this car is unequivocally not coming to Australia, but while we are here in India, it would be remiss not to take it for a spin, especially in the very Thar appropriate weather. So we're going to do that on the off-road facilities that Mahindra has on offer here at the SUV proving ground. And with that, our challenge was set. Can the Mahindra Thar complete a very technically challenging four-wheel drive track? And can it do so in the middle of a torrential Indian downpour? It's definitely going to put my skills to the test too. So let's check out what this test facility has on offer and what the Mahindra Thar, sadly not available in Australia, is made of. But before we do that, make sure you hit subscribe below. So what is the Mahindra Thar? Well, it's an off-roader that has a particularly storied history here in India. The nameplate made its debut back in 2010, but the vehicle's roots date back much further than that. Now, the elephant in the room is that you don't need to squint too hard to see some visual similarities with another pretty well-known off-roader, which shall remain nameless, but that similarity hasn't arisen out of nothing. Back in the 1940s, Mahindra was licensed to build the original Willys Jeeps in India under the Mahindra badge, and over the years, that vehicle evolved to what we are driving here today. While Mahindra was very clear to us that the Thar is unequivocally not coming to Australia, this is a great opportunity for us to get an insight into a key brand-defining vehicle for the brand, but also to give you a bit of a tour of Mahindra's four-wheel drive proving ground. The other great thing about this last-minute drive in the Thar is that we're getting another great experience at Mahindra's SUV proving ground. As you can see, it's extremely diverse, so it's very cool to test it out in the Thar and see exactly what kind of tests they put their vehicles through before they are deemed appropriate to go on the road as well, because it is a very intense track. The track is not only challenging, but it's also jam-packed with over 30 different obstacles to navigate. Anything from steep rocky descents to articulation challenges and water crossings. We got to experience all of that a bit earlier in the Mahindra Scorpio, where we had a bit more time on some of the most intense challenges. But it wasn't raining when we did that, so stay tuned to see how the Thar, and also me, coped with the course. But before we get into it, what powers the Thar? Well, this particular variant we are driving is powered by a detuned version of the 2.2 litre turbo diesel that's used in the Scorpio. It makes for 97 kilowatts of power and 300 newton meters of torque, mated with a 6-speed manual in our vehicle today. An automatic transmission is also available. In terms of its off-road credentials, the ladder frame chassis Thar also comes with a part-time four-wheel drive system with dual range gearing, independent double wishbone front suspension, a multi-link solid rear axle suspension layout, plus a locking rear differential. It also boasts ground clearance of 226mm, weighting depth of 650mm, and very solid approach, departure, and ramp over angles, which are going to come in handy today. In terms of dimensions, the 3-door Thar measures in the same length as the new 5-door Suzuki Jimny. While it's 3-door only in India, a 5-door is also on its way too. As well as this, Mahindra revealed an electric 5-door Thar E concept earlier this year, which is currently in the pipeline. Fingers crossed that one might make its way down under. So apparently there has been some pretty crazy weather here recently, and now it's pouring down in rain, so the roads are very wet, but again that makes it very appropriate to test out the capabilities here as we move through this little section. You can see it's a bit bouncy, but the Thar is made for this kind of stuff. We're going through a pretty deep water section here. Don't know if you can hear that. But yeah, there's a bit of water splashing around there as we make our way through it. But really, that little water crossing was a cinch. Let's step it up with the next one. Is there anything I need to be conscious of here?
No, at speed.
At speed? Yeah. We're making our way through the water crossing. As you can tell, it's a bit bumpy and rainy, but that's what we want in this kind of experience, to properly test what the vehicle is about. Now, important to note that this vehicle that we are very privileged to get an opportunity to drive today by Mahindra is one of the final pre-production versions that actually underwent testing on this very track right here. So it isn't a production ready vehicle, although it is very close, and it's now used by Mahindra on the facility as well. Alrighty, so far so good. The Tars managed to navigate the beginning of the course pretty well, but let's step it up a notch with one of my favourites. Bring on the articulation twister. We're now about to try what's called the articulation twister, which we went on earlier in the Scorpio, and we're about to do it in the Tar. You can see that our colleagues are doing it just in front of us, so we'll give them a bit of space and then we're going to give it a go ourselves. So again, this articulation twister is all about testing the suspension of the off-road four-wheel drives that go through this track. As you can see, the camera is bouncing around a fair bit, and that's just testament to how rigorous the testing is. The track was challenging, which makes sense having had a taste of Indian roads on the previous days of our journey. Like Australia, the country's not particularly known for having the best quality road conditions, so you can see why a rugged off-roader like this is in high demand. So while it's not available in Australia and not coming to Australia, it is incredibly popular in its local India. So sales have gone through the roof substantially, and to the point that the backlog of orders is anecdotally, there's been apparently up to 72 months wait in some stages. So significant demand for the car and supply constraints as well, which is again just goes to show how popular it is in its local India. The prototype version we've got here today is the pre-production prototype that I mentioned of the higher spec variant, which would cost about 30,000 Australian dollars in its home India in equivalent Australian dollar currency as well. And that's for the highest spec. If you convert the cheapest grade to Aussie dollars, that's 20 grand for an incredibly off-road capable vehicle for the price. It does seem like something that, if it were offered, would probably find a nice niche in Australia alongside the likes of the Suzuki Jimny and the Jeep Wrangler. But with that, it was time to see how the Tar coped with a slippery, steep stone ascent. And we're back to another rocky ramp. Alright, so now we are doing the steep stone ascent. I imagine this is around 40-45 degree ascent.
Perfect. Yeah. So car is almost at 30 degree, 35 degree angle.
So just regulating the brakes to take this one as easy as possible as we descend it at a very steep angle, and we've made it. Slowly making our way through the track, see what challenge we've got in store for us next. You can see our friends and other Tars down there. And then the rain intensified just in time for the next obstacle challenge. And now we're about to do the steps, which is another very rigorous test. You can see the other Tar has just made it through as we put the window back up because the rain is coming right in. Okay, so we've made it up the steps and now it's time to go down the steps, which is another challenge in its own right. And now we're going down the steps one by one, utilising the brakes a lot. Next one. Apologies, did 2 steps in one go that time. It's alright. There we go, made it through. And with that, it was time to wrap up our very short torrential loop of Mahindra's four-wheel drive proving track. The Tar certainly seemed up to the challenge, at least on our very initial drive. Overall, it felt like a highly competent, easy to drive vehicle off-road. It's bare, it's basic, but at the price point that it's sold in India, that does seem to be part of its rugged charm. So guys, drive in the Mahindra Tar is done. It's been a fantastic experience. This is such a cool car. I'm so privileged that I've actually been able to drive a car that is not available, not coming to Australia, but it's so iconic in India. So I've had a great time experiencing these very difficult roads, and super cool to experience the track that they've got in here in Chennai for the for all of Mahindra's off-roaders and what they experience to actually be deemed production worthy and what they have to go through. But yes, as you can see, I'm getting very wet, so I'm going to finish up right now and sign off there. So what do you think of the Mahindra Thar? Do you think it should come to Australia? Tell us in the comments below, and while you're there, make sure to hit subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.